Hey, welcome back for another session. My name is Tyler. I'm one of the pastors on staff here at Mission Church. I hope each of you have been enjoying this series called Rhythms as we dive deeper into the disciplines of Jesus, learning how to be more like him. I want each of you to think back on your life and remember something or someone that you were absolutely obsessed with. It could have been a sports team or an individual athlete from a specific sport. It could be a band or some kind of artist or musician. I know a lot of us usually have favorite actors, right? Who in the past we've tried to copy their style and their hair, and I hope that's just not me. But for example, to explain this a little bit better, when I was a kid, I started playing ice hockey around the age of 5. My dad and my grandpa would take me to Phoenix Coyotes games, and I became obsessed with this player named Jeremy Roenick. I remember watching him intently and learning from him and the way he skated and the way he handled the puck. And I remember getting posters of him in my room and buying literally every player card of his that I possibly could. For the rest of my hockey career, years and years after I started, I wore the number 97 because that was his number. And I still remember even today, most usernames online that I have to create for an account or something, or even passwords that I have for certain things usually have the number 97 in it. Don't go hacking into my accounts. You won't find much. But the point is that to an extent, I worshiped Jeremy Roenick. I watched him constantly. I would do anything to meet him. Right? I tried to be the similar hockey player to him in every way that I possibly could. I idolized him. I literally put him on this pedestal, and I didn't even know it. And some of you might be thinking, Tyler, well, you're just a little kid, you weren't worshiping him. Well, that kind of helps the point I'm actually trying to make. You see, many of us don't realize that we even worship other things. We say we worship God and don't even think about the fact that there are many other things that we worship on a daily basis, even over God. What worship means is to feel or express reverence or adoration, to deeply love or respect something, to glorify something, to exalt and honor something or someone. And when we look at it in that perspective, we realize that worshiping things other than God is much easier and tempting than we thought. We live in America in 2019, a time when everything around us is trying to grab our attention and pull us in a different direction, right? And we live in a time where social media and television and even porn make it hard for people to live in reality with what they have, being content, right? It's sad. And we constantly idolize the idea of a better life thanks to internet and all forms of media, because we're in a time where self-promoting, self-idolizing, and self-worship has never been so high. And we're always wanting the next big thing, never okay with what we have now. We live in a time where we worship and idolize sin as our worship for God gets buried and drowned out by the world. You see, in this session, I wanted to read a powerful story about worship out of Daniel chapter 3. So if you have your Bibles, I welcome you to follow along with me. And I really want you to notice and pay attention to how many times the text mentions the word worship. Every time you see the word worship, I encourage you to underline or circle it in your Bible. So let's read. Daniel chapter 3, verses 1 through 8. King Nebuchadnezzar made an image of gold, 90 feet high and 9 feet wide, and set it up on the plain of Dura in the province of Babylon. He then summoned the satraps, the prefects, the governors, advisors, treasurers, judges, magistrates, and all other provincial officials to come to the dedication of the image he had set up. So the satraps, prefects, governors, advisors, treasurers, judges, magistrates, and all the other officials assembled for the dedication of the image that King Nebuchadnezzar had set up, and they stood before it. Then the herald loudly proclaimed, "This is what you are commanded to do, O peoples, nation and men of every language. As soon as you hear the sound of the horn, the flute, the zither, the lyre, the harp, the pipes, and all kinds of music, you must fall down and worship the image of gold that King Nebuchadnezzar has set up. Whoever does not fall down and worship will immediately be thrown into a blazing furnace. Therefore, as soon as they heard the sound of the horn, the flute, the zither, the lyre, the harp, and all other kinds of music, all the peoples, nations, and men of every language fell down and worshiped the image of gold that King Nebuchadnezzar had set up. At this time, some astrologers came forward and denounced the Jews. They said to the king Nebuchadnezzar, "O king, live forever. You have issued a decree, O king, that everyone who hears the sound of the horn, flute, zither, lyre, harp, pipes, and all kinds of music must fall down and worship the image of gold. And that whoever does not fall down and worship will be thrown into a blazing furnace. But there are some Jews whom you have set over the affairs of the province of Babylon, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, who pay no attention to you, O king. They neither serve your gods nor worship the image of gold you have set up." Furious with rage, Nebuchadnezzar summoned Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. So these men were brought before the king, and Nebuchadnezzar said to them, "Is it true, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, that you do not serve my gods or worship the image of gold that I have set up? Now, when you hear the sound of the horn, the flute, the zither, the lyre, the harp, pipes, and all kinds of music, if you are ready to fall down and worship the image I made, very good. But if you do not worship it, you will be thrown immediately into a blazing furnace. Then what God will be able to rescue you from my hand?" Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego replied to the king, "O Nebuchadnezzar, we do not need to defend ourselves before you in this matter. If we are thrown into the blazing furnace, the God we serve is able to save us from it, and he will rescue us from your hand, O king. But even if he does not, we want you to know, O king, that we will not serve your gods or worship the image of gold that you have set up." And so we see here that they have this option. They can either be thrown into the fiery furnace or they can bow down and worship, and they choose not to. And kind of skipping a little bit ahead in the story to give you guys some closure, if you don't know the story as well, God ends up saving the day just like always, and they're saved from the fiery furnace. And so, but Daniel and his 3 friends have been taken away from their homeland and what they once knew, they're now in this land ruled by a king called Nebuchadnezzar. They find themselves in a land that is strange and full of idolatry, and where sin, statues, and a king is to be worshiped, trying to distract them from worshiping the one true God. This seems a little familiar, doesn't it? This is in itself is a picture of modern day, to where we are nearly being forced to worship sin and idols and people and even ourselves. But as we read the story, we see that Daniel and his friends, they don't break, right? They don't give into the temptation of worshiping other things over God. So much to where they literally accept the fate of getting thrown into a fiery furnace. And they make it clear, very clear, that even if God doesn't do something miraculous and they die, they would rather die worshiping God than worshiping anything else that does not deserve their worship. But why is this? You see, they know that worship is a choice. Every single day we wake up, we have a choice to either worship God or worship something that isn't. They know that one choice can lead to another, and one choice can lead to a lifestyle full of other choices. It can be a domino effect. And they knew that just being right? They can just get sucked into it, and they can suck it up and bow down and worship the golden image and not get thrown into the fiery furnace and die. Basically, they can choose the safe route, then go back to worshiping God later at a convenient time. But he knew that if they made that choice just once, they could have made an excuse to do it again and again and again, possibly leading to a lifestyle of worshiping idols over God. You see, this right here is the exact cycle that we get stuck in. We choose something over God or choose to sin over worshiping God, then make it easy for us to repeat that and make an excuse over and over again. We must realize, church, that our choices lead to a lifestyle, and our lifestyle is a reflection of what we worship. I'll say that one more time. We must realize that our choices lead to a lifestyle, and our lifestyle is a reflection of what we worship. I want to ask each of you, is your lifestyle and the choices you make a clear reflection of your worship to God? Or is it hard to see? Because maybe you're choosing to worship other things, giving your time, your efforts, your attention, and devotion to them. As a Christian, the world is watching us, looking at what we devote our time to, what we glorify, what we worship. And can the world clearly see that you worship God? Or would it never even cross their mind? Church, I encourage you to work on just a couple simple steps to help fix your mind on worshiping Jesus over everything else, as worship is a daily choice. First, limit the world. What I mean by that is be cautious of what you take in, what you listen to, what you give most of your attention to, because most likely, without even being aware of it, those things are trying to take God's place. At least that's what the devil wants. Most things around us want our worship, our adoration, and our full devotion. For example, right? If social media is limiting your worship towards God, maybe you should limit your screen time or fast from social media. If work is taking your attention from God, then learn a healthy balance that allows you to work hard and do what you need to do, but also give God all that he deserves. A lot of times we become controlled by the world and what we give our time to. But if you limit the world, you can take control, allowing yourself the opportunity to choose God, worship him, and give him the attention and full devotion that he deserves. Next is to make worship to God a lifestyle. Make it a part of who you are, a part of every decision, every thought, every action, and every choice you could ever make. Church, worship isn't just the 30 minutes that we take to sing songs every Sunday at church. It's a way of life. Are you choosing to wake up every morning and worship him through prayer and thanksgiving and reading and music and meditation? Are you choosing to worship him through the busy seasons of your life, knowing that he is the only one that will give you energy and fulfillment and joy through the busy seasons? Can you worship him through the pain and the heartache, right? Do you worship him when everything seems great? When you feel as if you don't need any help. And this is why worship is a discipline. Church, he deserves our worship in the highlands and the heartache, through the good and the bad, the highs and the lows. If there's one thing that you take away from this, let it be that your first choice should always be to worship him, no matter the season, as he's the only one who deserves our worship. Church, once again, thank you for joining me in this session of Rhythms, talking about the discipline of worship. We'll see you guys next week.